Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a very late night Ukraine war breaking news update. Late night for me anyway. Depends where you are in the world. What has happened? Well, Donald Trump has announced he is going to use presidential authority to send weapons to Ukraine, or at least that's what sources are saying. So summary of this, and this is coming originally from Reuters. Trump plans to use power for the first time in his present tenure. President could release around $300 million in US weapons. The use of authority may show a shift in Trump's Ukraine policy. This is in a day where Marco Rubio met with Sergei Lavrov. So that's the US Secretary of State meeting with the Russian Foreign Secretary. And there wasn't, or Foreign Minister, there wasn't too much, I don't think, in terms of movement after that meeting. And Marco Rubio sort of reiterated that Trump's not particularly happy with the state of affairs as it is. Now, before you get too excited about this, this is already appropriated financial aid to Ukraine that could have been and should have been given on January the 21st. Before you congratulate Trump, just let it be known, let it be understood that this delay has been completely unnecessary. We knew what Putin was like. Everyone knew it, apart from, it appears, Trump. And actually, this delay has brought about unnecessary Ukrainian deaths. So rather than, well done, Donald, that's a really good thing, it's about bloody time. That's the reality. It's about bloody time. Anyway, Washington, July the 10th, Reuters reports President Donald Trump, for the first time since returning to office, will send weapons to Kyiv under the presidential power frequently used by his predecessor. Two sources familiar with the decision said on Thursday, a move suggesting new interest in the president in defending Ukraine. More than 3 years after Russia's invasion of its neighbour, Trump's team will identify arms from the US stockpiles to send to Ukraine under the Presidential Drawdown Authority, the sources said, with one saying they could be worth around $300 million. Trump on Tuesday said the US would send more weapons to Ukraine to help the country defend itself against intensified Russian advances. The package could include defensive Patriot missiles and offensive medium-range rockets, but a decision on the exact equipment has not been made, the sources said. One of the people said this would happen at a meeting on Thursday, which makes me wonder whether they can really say it's likely to be $300 million if you don't know what's going to be sent. So something doesn't quite add up there for me. So far, the Trump administration has only sent weapons authorized by former President Joe Biden, who was a staunch supporter of Kyiv. Presidential Drawdown Authority allows the president to draw from weapon stocks to help allies in an emergency. The Pentagon and the White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Republican president's stance on defending Ukraine has been inconsistent. At times, he has criticized US spending and spoken favorably of Russia, but also sometimes has voiced support for Kyiv and disparaged the Kremlin. The US has $3.86 billion worth of presidential drawdown authority for Ukraine remaining. The last drawdown was a $500 million award by Biden on January the 9th. So what Biden did was try to get as much stuff released to Ukraine before the inauguration, and he left it a little bit too late, and that meant that there's $3.8 billion worth of equipment that could still be sent to Ukraine from PDA, from the US stocks. This is already appropriated money by Congress, and it's really frustrating that it's sat there while Ukraine has been in a lot of trouble. And as I say, this I think has led to unnecessary Ukrainian deaths. So the question is, well, there are many questions here. You know, what will be sent? Is this going to be the first of many such, or several such, aid packages? If it's 300 million, it's not huge, but it's not the smallest. It's a sort of fairly decent amount of money's worth of equipment. Yeah, I just wonder exactly what it would be, but I think that number's fairly arbitrary at the moment. Ukraine's top priorities are Patriot missile interceptors and Gimler's mobile rocket artillery, which may be included in the package. The weapons could be on the front lines within days because stocks are positioned in Europe. The Trump administration this month halted shipments of some critical weapons that were approved by Biden, but some of those shipments have resumed. Congress has approved nearly $175 billion of aid and military assistance for Ukraine and allied nations in nearly 3.5 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. Of course, that number is somewhat qualified or maybe even contested. Look at the Kiel support tracker, and the actual aid is something like about 114.5 billion, something like that. So anyway, either way, it's really neither here nor there for the point of this discussion. So this is good news. This is good news for Ukraine, and this is exactly what we want to see, which is the US changing tack, Donald Trump changing tack. I think that will please a lot of people in the in Congress who are strong supporters of Ukraine. Look at that makeup. That's an absolute state. So this is good news. It will please some people, but it won't go down well with I think some of the MAGA contingent who are very much anti-Ukraine, and certain people sort of talking about this. No Reports just gives a summary: $300 million under PDA program. The US has $3.86 billion available for Ukraine through PDA, and that will allow the direct transfer of stockpiles. Colby Badwar says of the $5.55 billion in the financial year 24 PDA that the Biden admin notified to Congress in September to prevent expiry, there is around about $1 billion left, plus several more billion in restored PDA from the prior re-evaluations. I presume he's agreeing that it's maybe 3.86 billion, as Reuters says, or maybe there's a little bit of difference of opinion there. But anyway, Badwar says it gives the Trump admin a lot of options to send large quantities of defense articles. They are, of course, considering the provision of an additional Patriot battery. That would be fantastic. We are hearing today that Germany is looking to purchase maybe one, maybe two batteries, that Norway may be seeking to finance one battery from the US as well. And it could be that, there was talk that Zelensky had given a list to Trump, and there could be some equipment on that list that the Ukrainians might want to buy directly. I don't know. There was a lack of clarity over what that list was, whether it's like, this is what we would like if you could spare it, or could it be in a shopping list? So I'm not too sure. Malcontent News says, if true, this is a seismic shift in Washington policy. It will also cause a major shift within MAGA as they line up behind Trump, even when he does the opposite of what was promised. The Kremlin will not take it well, marking the true end of the Putin-Trump bromance. Cautiously optimistic. I think there is a bit of an issue where you will get possibly people who are being more explicit in their condemnation of the Trump administration over the Epstein files. Your Tucker Carlsons of the world are also very anti-Ukraine, and that's not to mix up those two ideas, because I think there's an awful lot going on with the Epstein files at the moment, and Alan Dershowitz's announcement tonight was particularly interesting, saying that he knows it exists, he's seen it, he knows who's on it, etc., etc. Wow. But there is this kind of rupture within the MAGA, not MAGA information space, the MAGA demographic, the MAGA section of support for Trump, that I think this will help to show that fracture, I think, and bring it to the fore. But hopefully there are enough people in Congress who are serious about governance and serious about global geopolitics to know that this is good news for the US government to be doing this. That it could also give a permission structure for Congress to really get behind the sanctions bill that Richard Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham are putting through Congress. If everyone sees Trump as being much more obviously on the side of Ukraine, then there's going to be less chance of people going, well, I think Trump might want me to vote this way. People should be able to vote with their consciences, of course, but that's not happening under Trump. People will vote in terms of what they expect Trump to want them to vote for. Fascinating in terms of the ramifications within the GOP, within the Republican Party, this announcement, or it's not a formal announcement, these anonymous sources saying that this will happen. And of course, all the caveats need to be applied to that because this hasn't come from Trump himself. But assuming it is true, some serious ramifications in the American political spaces, but serious ramifications, of course, for Ukraine. It's really, really good news if it does come about. But again, be very wary of congratulating anyone in the Trump administration for this, because my goodness, this is a long, long time overdue. This should have been just obviously something to take place the week after the inauguration, and then another package a month later, and then maybe another package a month after that. Even if it's not about trying to get through another appropriations bill through Congress, there's still that leftover funding for Ukraine, or that can and should be used for Ukraine, to the tune of $3.86 billion. And my goodness, they could do with that help now. And it'd be nice to see strikers go over, and Bradleys. I'd like to see them, and just obviously a lot of missiles and ammunition and all those basic things that I talked about before the Trump inauguration, saying that I'm really worried about these packages that the Americans frequently gave to the Ukrainians that are going to stop, and they are your bog standard, ammunition, 84, and obviously artillery ammunition, Stinger missiles, all these things that aren't like snazzy, a bunch of Bradleys and Patriots and whatnot, but the nitty gritty everyday items that the Ukrainians had been relying on, and were coming very consistently, these sort of $175 million packages, that kind of size package that was happening fairly regularly, and then that stops, and that's exactly what the Ukrainians were relying on, sort of quietly, under the radar. It's not these big ticket items. So it'd be great if more of that comes along as well. I mean, goodness me, it'd be great if anything, and even better if everything, was provided by the Americans. But we shall see. $300 million is a lot, but actually, in terms of weapons, it doesn't go nearly far enough. But this is at least a really good start if it is indeed true. Let me know what you think. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.